Guess what? There are a bunch of new Instagram updates. Are we surprised? No. By this point, we're not. I am excited though, because a few of these are pretty major, so I'm looking forward to diving into them with you. By the way, this video is sponsored by ManyChat, more on them later. All right, let's just dive right in. The first Instagram update that I want to talk about is notes. I know I've mentioned notes in almost every recent Instagram update video, but this time they're really taking center stage. If you didn't know already, notes originated as this kind of like DM status that you can add to your profile and that others can see when they're in the DM tab. These have moved onwards and upwards from there though. Instagram have recently integrated notes to all feed and reels posts. I'm gonna go get a prop to explain how this works.
A few moments later.
Right, so it's embarrassing how excited I am to have a prompt in my video. So essentially how this update works is that people are now able to leave notes on feed and reels posts for other people to see. And if you're like me, where you just couldn't get your mind around how this works, this is where the prop comes in, right? Let's say this, for an example, is an Instagram post. So you're scrolling and you're seeing a bunch of different versions of this appear on your screen. This new feature will allow you, you will be able to write a note on this post, which someone else will be able to see the next time this post appears on their homepage. It's basically a way for you to attach a comment to a post that only a certain amount of people are able to see and which only lives on that post for 3 days. Look, if you're still listening to that and you're still like, I don't get it, don't beat yourself up, because this update does really challenge the way that we are used to using social media. Like, this really goes against the grain of how we normally interact with content. So it does take a little while for you to get your head around. It is worth noting that notes can only be left by mutual follows. So you have to be following that person and they have to be following you. And if that is the case, you'll see a little icon appear on their content, which will invite you to leave a note for others to see. I'd love to know what you guys think about this one and if you're already using it, because my little pea head brain honestly is still wrapping my head around it. Before we talk about the rest of the updates, let's take a quick break to talk about a tool that you need to be using if you are serious about your Instagram journey this year. Now, you might have heard about this tool already. The tool is called ManyChat. ManyChat helps you create meaningful conversations with your audience, ignite engagement, and if you're a brand or a business, even drive more sales. And it does this all by Meta-approved chatbots. Now, whenever I talk about ManyChat, there's always a point that I just really need to land, because this is the most important point. As I mentioned, ManyChat is approved by Meta. Now, there are a handful of apps and applications which are actually approved third parties to Meta, which mean that you can freely use them without you ever having to worry about whether Meta will put you in their bad books or restrict your content in some way. You don't have to worry about that with ManyChat because they are approved by Meta already, which is amazing. Now, there are a bunch of different ways that creators use ManyChat. I use it as a way for me to promote my recent YouTube challenge that I did inside my membership. I have a few posts coming up where I'm using ManyChat to drive conversations in my inbox. I have further content scheduled where I'm using ManyChat to drive signups on my email list. Like, there are so many different use cases for ManyChat. Now, the way that I like to use it is by setting up an automation which allows me to automatically DM my audience a link or a message when they've commented on my post with a specific word. So for example, I have a post coming up where I'm going to ask my audience to comment the word letter. And when they do comment the word letter, they'll get a DM from me, which will give them a direct link to join my email list and read my new monthly series, which is called A Letter to My Readers. I love using ManyChat in this way because it's super easy for me, but also my audience, which is you guys. Case in point, over the space in 10 months, Amy Porterfield collected over 18,000 new emails for her email list using a ManyChat automation. Jenna Kutcher also used ManyChat to drive over $900,000 in sales. Like, that still absolutely blows my mind. If you want to create your own automations using ManyChat, head to the link in my description to get started. All right, let's get back into some updates. Let's talk about the updates coming to Reels, because as always, there are a few. First one I want to talk about is the fact that Instagram will soon allow you to add up to 20 audio tracks to your Reels. 20. Basically, Instagram has introduced a new feature which will allow you to add multiple tracks to your Reels. And as I mentioned, not just multiple tracks, guys, but 20. The idea is that it will allow you to become a lot more creative with your content by overlapping different tracks and using different sounds to actually bring your content to life. This is great news for anyone who's like heavy on the short form video editing. Do you know what I mean? If that's like really your thing, then this will be very welcome news. The next update is actually related to the first update, which is notes. But this time it's an update which is in testing. And the update is a new new feed specifically for your reels which have notes on them. Basically, cast your minds back to the first update that I spoke about. And if you skip that update because you're skipping ahead in the video, then let this be a lesson learned. In that update, I spoke about attaching notes to your reels. This new update, if it gets approved, will allow you to filter through all of your reels so that you're only seeing the reels that have notes attached to them. Is this useful? I don't know. I think it's heavily going to depend on how many people actually attach notes to reels. So I reckon maybe that's why it's still in testing. And if a lot of people start to attach notes to reels, then I can see this test actually passing and it becoming a new update. Watch this space. Okay, so the next updates we're going to talk about are updates relevant to broadcast channels. Now, if you don't know about broadcast channels already, it's because you haven't been watching all of my Instagram updates videos. I'm going to go ahead and just ask you to subscribe so that you can do that in the future. Broadcast channels are essentially like private DMs where you are the only one sending messages. And every time I explain that, I always have to say how much I would hate that. It's like the idea of being in a WhatsApp group but no one's responding to you. Until now, what a great segue from me. Instagram are testing an update which will allow people to respond in broadcast channels. As I mentioned, this is very different for broadcast channels because traditionally broadcast channels were just about you broadcasting messages to a bunch of people and not about them responding to you. This update allows everyone in your broadcast channel to actually respond to you, but what it does is it groups all of those responses under a specific message that you've sent. Whilst this update might not make sense on the surface, because if you think about broadcast channels, the title is literally broadcast channels. Although I will say that I have noticed that Instagram have been dropping the broadcast from broadcast channels sometimes when they talk about it. They've been referring to them as channels now, and that might be a result of this update. So even though this update kind of goes against what it was originally supposed to be, the way that they've incorporated it does make sense because it's still not the same as you having a big group convo where everyone can just respond to you and you can see all the responses in that one thread. They are grouping those responses so that you can only see them when you actually actively go to look for them. Now, in order for you to get access to this update, you do have to enable comments. So it's not something that will automatically be available for your broadcast channels. And the idea is that this feature will encourage more discussions within your channel. There is an argument to say that maybe this has been introduced because engagement levels weren't as high as maybe they expected them to be within broadcast channels or channels, whatever we're calling them now. So maybe this was introduced as a way to counteract that. Who knows? Let's watch this space and see how this new update performs. Now, before we move on to the next set of updates, because yes, there is more, there is a final thing that's coming to broadcast channels, which is a bit of a weird one, where basically you'll soon be able to tag a channel in your content. So, you know, when you upload your content, you get a bunch of settings or options, and the number of options is just getting bigger and bigger. With every update video, there's a bunch of new options there. A new option that they're adding is to tag a channel. So you'd be able to tag your broadcast channel to a post, which I'm assuming will make it easier for you to promote the broadcast channel. Let's see. Okay, next batch of updates, we're talking about stories. There are actually some major updates coming to stories here. The first is comments in stories. You might be thinking, but Jade, I can already respond to a story with a comment. You'd be wrong. What you're actually doing is responding to a story with a DM. Sometimes when I talk, I just think this has become another language. Instagram has become another language. If you are new to Instagram and you're watching this video as like your first video about Instagram, imagine how complicated this would sound. Anyway, what we've been able to do with stories up until this point, and what we can still do with stories, is to respond to a story with a DM. So you respond and it goes straight into your direct messaging inbox. This new feature allows you to comment on a story, which means that you're not sending a DM, you're just literally sending a comment which is designated to that story. Now, when you comment on a story, they are displayed towards the bottom of the screen as a way for it not to interfere with the story itself, and others are able to see the comment that you've left. And this is also different to how we were previously engaging with stories, because when you responded to a story with a DM, no one else was able to see what that DM was. It's kind of like an extension of the like feature. About a year ago, they added the little love heart so that you can just like stories. It's like an extension to that. And it's come as a result of Instagram saying for a while now that actually a lot of engagement is in your stories. And for many creators, that's where majority of their engagement is. There's also an argument to say that these comments might act as an additional signal to Instagram's algorithm to help them figure out how popular your story content is. So if you upload a story, it gets a ton of comments, there's a big chance that that story might then be pushed out to more people. Again, let's watch the space. I don't actually think I have access to that one yet. So if you do, hit me up, let me know how it's going. But for now, we're just gonna have to keep an eye on it and wait and see. The other updates coming to your stories, I've kind of grouped together. There are a few stickers being added to the library, but this has actually become quite a common thing. So I'm not gonna dwell on those too much. What I think is a bigger deal, and let me know if you disagree, is that the fonts have changed, or at least they've added more fonts that I still don't have access to. I keep on seeing people with these fonts, and I mean, it says a lot about me that I'm getting jealous. But I'm genuinely jealous of these people with these new Instagram fonts that I don't have access to. They've basically added a bunch of new Instagram fonts. It's a big deal because they've not changed their font library in a really long time. And the idea is that it's going to allow people to get a bit more creative and express themselves a little bit more freely. All right, we're getting there, guys. We're getting there. The next update has actually been floating around for a while now. I would say almost a year, but not everyone knows about it. And Instagram has actually come out and spoken about it. And it's vertical feeds. This is basically when you go on someone's Instagram page and instead of seeing square grids, you're going to see vertical, portrait, rectangle. How many other words can I use to describe this? A rectangle grid. That's basically what you're going to see. Now, this is an obvious update. I'm not going to dwell on it for too long. It's come as a result of the type of content that we're sharing is just generally different to what it was in the early days of Instagram. So actually going from a square to a rectangle feed makes complete sense. And if anything, is a little bit overdue. So because Instagram have spoken about this, I assume that this is going to start to be rolled out to everyone soon, because even though it's been around for about a year, it's only been available to a handful of people. They're also expanding their creative options to your carousels so that you can add stickers and text to your carousels. This is actually a reflection of a trend that's been getting pretty popular on Instagram recently, where people annotate their carousels. It's very similar to like, what was that bloody app that I always forget the name of? You know what? It's not going to come to me this time. I just know it's not. It's not even kind of in the back of my mind. Lemonade. It actually came to me. I think Lemonade recently shut down. Hold on. Oh my God. No, that means I had a dream that Lemonade closed down. And I just thought to myself, surely I'm not dreaming about Lemonade. Like, surely that was actual news. No, I was dreaming about it. It's not closed down. How pathetic. I dream about apps. Anyway, it's very reminiscent of Lemonade style content and it's very popular at the minute. So I can actually see this being a very well-received update. The next update is that Instagram has just launched a live test of a friends map. It's basically Find My Friends, but on Instagram. And I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not gonna lie. It's an interactive map which allows you to see where all your mates are. Again, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Like, I don't know. I only allow a very handful of people to even have me on Find My Friends. Maybe I'm just like a really private person. I'm not doing anything dodgy, I swear. I just find the idea of you watching me on a map a little bit creepy. How it will work is you'll be able to see where your friends are based on their tag stories. So it's not like it's actually just showing you like a live status of where they are, like Find My Friends. It's actually just going to tell them where they were based on whatever they've tagged recently in their story. So if they're not tagging a location, you won't be able to see where they are. It's just in testing for now so they can figure out what the feedback is, what the risks are. So I'm not sure if this was going to be rolled out, but as always, watch the space. Okay, we're on to the last one, guys. We almost made it. This one is about super likes. It might sound familiar to you. It's because almost every other social media platform already has this feature. It is the ability for you to send... How on earth am I going to explain this one? It's a super like. It's just a like on steroids. You have to like press your thumb down for a little bit longer in order for that like to be sent. And you can only send one of these super likes a day. It's not a paid feature yet. On other platforms, super likes often have a monetary value. So like if I was going to send a super like to someone, that would also involve me sending them some form of money. But that's not really the case on Instagram at the minute. It's just a way to show someone that you really love their content. And I would assume that super likes are going to carry a heavier weight in the algorithm. So if you get a bunch of super likes, that content is probably going to perform a bit better. Heavy on the probably though, because we just don't know yet. It is in testing. I think one thing that they're specifically looking at is whether or not it's going to be used in romantic context. I think they're trying to avoid that happening, which I think is quite funny. It reminds me of like the Facebook nudge. Aging myself as I ever am in these videos. If you remember the Facebook nudge, it was like a bit of like a flirty thing that people would do. It might end up being like that, but let's see. All right, we got there. I'm so proud of us. Do not forget to check out ManyChat and get started with your own automations by heading to the link in my description. If you feel like hanging around, please watch this video. It is all about how hashtags work on Instagram this year and beyond. It's very important that everyone watch this video because there have been so many changes to hashtags recently. So please watch this because I promise you're going to get some value from it. Thank you so much for watching as always. I cannot wait to see you in my next video.